If you play fingerstyle guitar and you have not tried playing in an open tuning, you are missing out. Sure, it can be scary to change the tuning, but it's actually pretty easy to do. And most importantly, you gain access to a lot of cool and easy to play music that is not available in standard tuning. Today, we'll learn how to use open tuning to do the two things people want most. Number one, learn a song. We've got a really easy song you can learn to get your feet wet in open tuning. And number two, be able to sound good noodling around. I'll show you some really easy ways to gain just a couple of simple skills so you can kick back, improvise, and sound great. And of course, make sure to check the link in the description for free tabs. One of my big goals on this channel is to find and make tabs for songs that sound amazing but are still easy to play. By the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to sound amazing in open tuning, and you don't even have to put in all that much effort to do it. What I'm playing for you here is a tune by the great Elizabeth Cotten called Vestapol or Vestapol. The guitar is tuned to an open D major chord, and while it sounds impressive, the open tuning makes this song really easy to play. There's also a super interesting history behind this song, so stick around to the end and you'll learn a bit more about how this song helps tell the story of the guitar making its way into the United States and into the hands of blues musicians. So first things first, here's a super quick crash course on open tunings. The guitar is typically tuned E, A, D, G, B, E, which doesn't sound that great by itself. This tuning evolved from earlier guitar ancestors like the Renaissance lute and the vihuela, so we kind of just inherited this tuning. And it's definitely useful. More than anything, it facilitates useful chord shapes, but it's by no means the only tuning you can use. You can also tune the strings so that they spell out a full chord with just the open strings. Some of the most common open tunings are open D tuning, which is D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. And then there's also open G tuning, which is D, G, D, G, B, D, and that spells a G major chord. We'll be working in open D tuning, so to tune your guitar to open D tuning, definitely use a tuning app and do the following. Take your 6th string and drop it down to D. That's a whole step down. You can cross-reference with the 4th string to make sure they sound similar. The 5th and the 4th strings stay the same. The 3rd string goes down just a half step to F sharp. 2nd string goes down a whole step to A. And the 1st string goes down a whole step to D. In America, guitars started using open tunings in the early to mid 19th century, but it became more popular in the late 19th century, especially in folk, blues, and slide guitar traditions. So why would someone use an open tuning? Well, for starters, it makes the guitar more accessible. By just playing open strings, it sounds good, so a self-taught guitarist, and there were many at that time, could just noodle around and sound pretty good without doing too much. And by the way, you can too. But also blues guitarists can use things like a slide much more easily with open tuning, because the slide lines up vertically over a fret and you can play a specific chord at a specific fret. Now, if you're a fan of fingerstyle blues like Delta or country blues, you'll find many songs in open tuning. And after watching this video, you should be able to try them out. One of the reasons this music sounds so good is the finger picking pattern, which is grounded in alternating bass notes. If you've never tried playing any fingerstyle blues before, start here with a few exercises I'm going to show you. You need to get comfortable with the finger picking pattern before you have a fighting chance at playing actual songs. Now, if you already know a pattern, feel free to skip ahead to learning the song, but I have a feeling you would still benefit from just a little refresher crash course on getting better at this picking pattern. Now, using an open tuning is actually one of the best ways to really learn this pattern because the guitar sounds good without even using our left hand. So we can really focus in on just the right hand and getting that pattern down without distracting ourselves at all with the other hand. I recommend starting by just settling into the groove and playing these 6th and 4th strings back and forth with your thumb. Play this, get into it, burn it into your DNA. See if you can read the morning news while you're keeping this groove. No matter what else you do, you can't lose the rhythm or the direction of these notes. Back and forth, total control. Once you have control of the bass notes with your thumb, you'll need to get comfortable adding the fingers in between. And again, what better way to do it than on an open chord where you don't need a left hand? Now, once you add the fingers in the mix, it can get really tricky, so I recommend starting with the easiest possible pattern first. For me, that's a pattern that puts the fingers in between the thumb beats, so you only have one finger at a time to be thinking about. So if we have the thumb taking strings 6 and 4, we're going to take our middle and index fingers, assign them to a string. So here we'll assign them to strings 3 and 2, and we're going to play them in between the beat. We'll start with middle, then index. So we'll go bass, middle, bass, index. Start very slow, and as that gets more comfortable, speed it up. You can also try doing index middle instead of middle index. Once you've got pattern 1 down, the next difficult thing is to play a finger at the same time as the thumb. So here's a great pattern to work on that. Start with your thumb and your middle together, both. Then we'll go thumb and index separate. And then let's just play 2 bass notes to clear the air. So all 4 of those beats together would sound like this. Both, separate, bass, bass. Again, both, separate, bass, bass. And of course you could switch the order of the fingers on that one too. Both, separate, bass, bass. The third pattern to learn is basically a combination of those 2 patterns. And if you can get that pattern down, you can use that for the entire fingerstyle blues and you'll be okay. So to combine them, we'll start with that both, separate, and now instead of just going bass, bass, we'll do that first pattern. Bass, middle, bass, index. So all together it would sound like this. Both, separate, bass, middle, bass, index. Both, separate. Now I've assigned middle and index to strings 2 and 3, but you could just as easily assign them to strings 1 and 2. You can practice all kinds of patterns. My advice is to start simple and really master these patterns on the open strings. Then you absorb or create other patterns as you learn more actual songs. Then you'll have a whole repertoire and you can just kind of mess around with whatever pattern you want as you get really good. Learning the picking pattern takes some work, but once you have the pattern down, all you need to do is learn 2 easy chord shapes and you have the full toolkit. The blues works off of the 1, 4, and 5 chords, and here we have open strings for the 1 chord. We have this really beautiful shape here for the 4 chord, not too hard to play, and a nice simple 5 chord using the same fingers. Take the time to learn the shapes of these 4 and 5 chords by heart, and also make sure you know exactly which notes are the 2 alternating bass notes of each chord. So for the 4 chord, you'd have this. And for the 5 chord, it would be this. Now I know it might be tempting to jump into playing the song right away, but if you start with little exercises like these, they pay big dividends. Not only will you be able to learn the songs like 10 times faster, but you'll also be able to just noodle around and sound good before you even start working on the song. So here's a little test to see if you're ready to take on learning the actual song. You're going to pick an alternating bass pattern or use our pattern from earlier and just play through a 12-bar blues progression where you hit each chord shape and you can transition from chord to chord. If you can make it through all 12 bars of the blues, you're not only ready to learn the song, but you have something you can noodle on that sounds great by itself. Now, let's talk about learning this awesome tune, Vestapol. There are 3 parts to get down. They all seem long, but because of repeated material, if we focus on specific, unique measures, we can learn this a lot faster. Here are the most important measures to learn. Measure 1 has the main melodic riff. I count it and you'll find this riff 14 plus times over the course of the whole song, so it is worth spending time on. One of the things I like to do to learn this is to draw a little horizontal line to separate the bass notes from the melody notes and try to learn them separately. Of course, the bass line here is really easy because it's the 1 chord, right? It's that typical. So we could start focusing on just the finger melody first. Try to be really accurate with your slides and your hammers and make them rhythmic, as opposed to just kind of wherever. And one of the big reasons why is you need to coordinate those with bass notes. And this is a very strange feeling, so this is the first thing you want to work on. Once you get this melody down, coordinating the slide with the second bass note like this. Same thing happens here on the hammer. So the hammer comes down as you play that higher bass note. Altogether, it sounds like this. Now, one of the best reasons why you should separate this with a horizontal line is this melody happens also over the 4 chord and the 5 chord, so you need to be ready for everything. But by learning the melody alone, it's very easy to copy and paste it over the other chords. Measure 17 is the next one to learn. It's just a slight variant of measure 1. And it's the major difference between part 1 and part 2 in this song. It should be pretty easy to learn after you spent a lot of time on measure 1, but take the time to get this one down so you can play one or the other and so that you know the difference between the two. Measures 3 and 4 have this tricky slide back and forth. This is a lot of movement to coordinate and maybe something you haven't done before. This is kind of the ending of the phrase, and it's complementary to that first melodic riff that we did, and it repeats in 8 measures of music in the song, so you'll get a lot of mileage from learning just these 2 measures as well. When you have these riffs down, you kind of have the DNA of the entire song. All it really changes is the bass notes, depending on what chord you're on, and sometimes a different combo of those fragments from the same riffs. But those 3 riffs are showing up all the time. Now part 3 is really fun because we get to jump to some higher notes, explore a bend, and add some variety to the sound. But before you try to learn it note for note, just take a second to pack it all into one little box so it's easier to see what's going on theoretically here. We basically have 3 melody notes to deal with, and they come in at a bunch of different times. Play those 3 notes together so you know what you're dealing with. It's really just these 3. In different orders. I would then just try to play them as an exercise with a steady open string bass pattern to really get them down. Here's something I might do. Easy pattern, and just start messing around. Have endless fun with just 3 notes. This little area can be great material for noodling if you work on it separately. Then go in and learn bars 33 through 37, measure by measure, and put them together, and you're basically all set for the entire song. So just to recap, this is the exact toolkit you will need to be able to noodle. Number 1, you need a fingerpicking pattern. Start with the simple pattern from this video, or you can swap or mix in your own if you're more advanced. Number 2, you need to make sure you know the chord shapes. 1, 4, and 5 at the very least. Number 3, you need the progression. Now we want to use the 12-bar blues and use those transitions to get from chord to chord. Truth be told, Vestapol itself follows a slightly different format, so only follow that exact format if you're a bit more advanced. And as a bonus, if you want to keep advancing your noodling, try finding some melody areas to play in based on the song. Now we have basically 2 areas to play in. The first area comes from those first few bars in Vestapol. Just that little set of notes. You can play them exact, you can change the order, add your own flair. And that second area is right up here at the 7th fret. So if you use Vestapol's picking pattern, chords, and even riffs as a bass, but you do it your own way, you can start to sound really good. So I'll give you an example where I use only the tools we discussed. I won't add anything else, just to give you a realistic idea of what you could sound like noodling with just these basic tools. By the way, you may be wondering why this tune is called Vestapol. Well, it's a strange name, but there is a super interesting history here, so I'm going to quickly gloss over it for you. In the 1850s, a guitarist named Henry Worrell wrote and published a piece called The Siege of Sebastopol, a descriptive fantasy for the guitar. It was inspired by the Crimean War siege of Sebastopol in 1854 and 55. Well, that song became massively successful and widely known all throughout the USA, all because of, I guess you could call it 1800s marketing genius. You see, you got to realize that in the mid-1800s, There were these small parlor guitars that became popular in middle-class American homes. People would order them from catalogs like Sears and Montgomery Ward. These guitars were cheap, so they were often bundled with beginner method books or featured simple fingerstyle pieces. Vestapol was one of them. I think Vestapol took off because it was in an open tuning and easy to get rich sounding harmonies while only playing a melody on the first string, basically. In fact, the song ended up becoming so popular that people began to call this tuning Vestapol tuning. Interestingly though, the actual piece was too difficult for most players to learn note for note. If Elizabeth Cotten played it, it likely wasn't his original score, but a simplified folk-adapted version, or even something more like his later, easier pieces like Mexican Dances, which were written in the same tuning for parlor musicians. So in a sense, Cotten's Vestapol carried forward not the composition itself, but the spirit of this open D tradition. And you can hear some slight similarities if you listen to the two together. Now I think Cotten's adaptation of this tuning into the blues vernacular helps illustrate an interesting connection of how open tunings made it into the blues. In the mid-1800s, you got these parlor guitars coming with open tuning pieces to make things easy for folks ordering them. Then by the late 1800s, they become more widespread and make it into African American communities. Since open tunings were still very popular, they were adopted and transformed by players like Mississippi John Hurt, Furry Lewis, Robert Wilkins, and of course Elizabeth Cotten, to name a few. They shifted the focus from parlor-style fingerpicking to a blues structure, slide playing, spirituals, etc. And this, in turn, helped lay the groundwork for country and Delta blues as a genre. So in a way, every time you hear a slide on an open tuning or a thumb thumping along a steady bass line, you're hearing the ripple effect of one simple little parlor piece from a long time ago. That's all for today. I hope you download the free tabs and learn this awesome tune and even add your own spice to it with some of the improv tips. If you want more video content that gives you accessible, great sounding music plus important playing tips, make sure to subscribe and head over to my channel. The channel has all kinds of videos with things like full courses, performances, song tutorials, technique tips, and just general advice to help you on your guitar journey. And if you've made it this far, I would love for you to take a look at Practice Pilot. It's a deck of cards that you can use to easily craft fun, engaging practice sessions that actually help you make progress on the guitar. So if you've been stagnant for a while, not making progress, or if you find it hard to focus in and have a good practice session on your own, click the link to learn more about how you can get your own deck and start actually making progress again.